In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 secrets of your higher self that will totally transform your life. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron. I help people expand their consciousness. Now this video, I'm going to be sharing with you those 3 secrets of your higher self that once you know, changes everything. Because you will start to see your whole life in a different way when you understand more of who you are. This is why when we have awareness, everything in our life changes. And part of that awareness is knowing who we really are. Because most of our lives, we will identify with the part of us that is the ego part of us. That is the ego that interprets the world through the 5 senses. We can see, we can hear, we can touch, we can smell. And we say to ourselves, oh, this is who I am. This is what I experience. However, this is just a small sliver of the pie. There is even more to experience when we expand our awareness outside of just the perspective of the reactive self. Because most people live in reaction. It's kind of the sad truth, but most people live in reaction to their whole environment, their whole life, not aware that they are more than that of just their physical structure. But if we look at this, let's first off look at the fundamental basis of who we are. Now, in essence, we are higher vibrational beings. And what we do is for a period of time on earth, we come to earth, we incarnate here, we are born here. And when we do that, we interpret the reality through our 5 senses. And we have this ego. And the ego doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be bad. A lot of people will say that the ego is bad, but the ego is still part of an experience we're having. It's about being aware of the ego. And one of the things that we agreed to when we came to earth was that we were going to forget that who we are at a greater level is unconditional love and bliss, that we are immortal spiritual beings living a temporary human experience. Now, why would we forget that? Well, the reason is because if we were to remember that when we were born, we'd in a way remember that life is a form of game. It's just an experience that we're having. And maybe we wouldn't take the whole experience, the game, so seriously if we remembered that that is who we are right from the get-go. However, what if one of the reasons that we come to earth is because part of the game upgrade is for us to see if we can remember who we really are. That's part of the game itself. And that's what people call spiritual awakening. The whole game, and a lot of the game, is about upgrading states of consciousness. It's about letting go of what doesn't serve and moving up this vibrational ladder. And when you go through a spiritual awakening, pop, you go to a higher ring on this ladder. You start to go and have a higher perspective. You can see a little bit further. You can understand things from a little bit grander perspective. Now, that's the thing. We have this ego self. The ego self is the part of us that is constantly in reaction to the environment. Many of us might get identified with our ego self and live most of our life experience in the ego self. But then one day, pressure is created, and then we come out of it on the other end, and we realize, hey, I can observe my thoughts, and as I observe my thoughts, I start to exist in a new state of consciousness. You see, that's the thing, is we are so much more than just the ego structure. But at a certain level, we've agreed to come to earth because right now there's stuff going on here. There's a transformation of consciousness happening on the planet. That's why 7 billion people or more are here right now. It's because this is the place to be. There's so many souls that want to be here. And we're here on earth. This is the part of experiences that we're having. And sometimes we get too identified with the ego where we forget about who we really are. And who we really are is immortal spiritual beings. We're just living temporary human experiences. And just like if you were playing a video game, and if when you were playing the video game, say you're playing Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto, you're going around, you're doing crazy stuff, and while you're doing it, you're going to treat that game differently than if you were in real life and you were living in San Andreas. You're not going to go around and you're going to slap people around. You're not going to take stuff out of people's hands. You're not going to ride a tank around and do all that stuff because it's real life. What you put out is what you get back. Not good stuff comes from that. But you see, you play it differently when you know it's a game. Now, here's the thing. It's not a bad thing to see life as a game. It can actually help you because then you take it a little bit less serious. You understand this is a temporary thing. When you see people pass away, at a certain level you realize they're immortal spiritual beings. You don't have to, we just give death such a negative connotation. All they did is they logged out of the game. But from our perspective, it's a very sad thing. But in general, this is about just understanding a larger scope of consciousness. We are unconditional love and bliss. We exist in higher states of consciousness. That's why enlightened people say that enlightenment is not an attainment. You don't attain enlightenment because it's a realization. It's something you realize. Just like the upper vibrational states of consciousness is who we naturally are. We're simply incarnated into a system where we might get a little bit along the process of forgetting that. But the point is to remember and to wake up from the dream. Now, what's the first secret of the higher self? This totally changed my life when I understood it. We have free will, or what appears to be free will at least, because some of us live in the autopilot mind every single day. So we could say, oh, I'm going to choose to go to do this today, but the choose to go do this might just be the same choice that we made yesterday. But in general, we have free will here. So when we come to Earth, one of the things we do when we're using this avatar body where I play this role, my name's Aaron, I make YouTube videos. This is a role that I'm playing while I'm here on Earth. And whatever role you're playing, we decide to have this. Now, here's the thing, there's free will. So the way that I chose to be here on Earth, just like you chose to be here right now, is there's a certain hallway that we want to walk down. Now, this hallway is what we decided before we were born that we are going to go down. There could be certain appointments we've made with different people, with different soul contracts, different things we wanted to experience. Now, the idea is go down this hallway, we will go, but how we go down this hallway, totally up to us. We could crawl down the hallway, kicking and screaming. We could go down the hallway very fluidly. We could skip down the hallway. We could do somersaults down the hallway. We could fly down the hallway. We could apparate down the hallway. There's so many different ways we can go about this. Up to us. Free will. However, the idea is there's certain appointments we've made. So what happens is our higher self is still a part of us, but is like, okay, I want to have this kind of experience. How can I make these appointments in daily life and help orchestrate it? In a way you could think out of it like sometimes our higher self will bait us a little bit. Go in this direction, then something happens. Go in this direction, something happens. Think of it like a carrot on a stick. Sometimes we're following our excitement. That could be the hallway that we're going down. Following our excitement leads us further and further down that hallway. And then we make certain appointments that then are things that were part of soul contracts, things that we wanted to experience. So in a way, every single night when you go to bed, what you are doing from a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of perspective, you and your higher self, which is they're both parts of you, are orchestrating certain events out for the next day that you can have that will lead you to something else. Now sometimes maybe these aren't the most positive things. Maybe if you're living a certain pattern right now that's hurting you, that's not serving you, maybe the higher self's like, you know what, we're going to have this happen because when this happens, we know then you will make this kind of choice. They're working with your own beliefs. They're working with where you are. And in the same way, what happens is as we become aware of where we are, we can start to see what kind of messages could our higher self be giving us. Go in this direction. Well, they might be saying from a certain perspective, okay, well, I told Aaron to do this. It's not like our higher self tells us what to do, but will guide us in a certain direction. Because you see, the higher self is still us. So it's like, look, okay, Aaron needs to work and start to move into the direction of doing public events, doing events where he speaks in public. Well, let's go ahead and move this around a little bit, and this will make him realize that he's got to do it a little bit sooner because he's kind of put it on the back burner right now. So what will happen is in daily life, something happens, and if I don't get the message, then what will happen is at nighttime, me and the higher self, which they're both versions of me, by the way, I'll sit there and say, the little Aaron, the ego Aaron, doesn't seem to be getting the message. Well, maybe we could do something a little bit more to make him more apparent of what it is. Could be something small, could be something pleasant. Could be I meet with a mentor and the mentor's like, hey, you should be doing this sooner because the sooner you do it, the sooner XYZ happens. And I'm like, oh, I see value in that. And then I go do that. So it could be something nice. It doesn't have to be bad. It's not like the higher self's evil trying to get us, but it's the message getting across. So what I would say, something very powerful that you could do is look at your life and see in your life right now, is there certain messages that may be trying to get through to you, but maybe just unaware of it. But maybe if you are aware of it, maybe then there's less situations that have to happen for something to come into your life and make that shift. So your life experiences, in a way, are orchestrated to guide you in certain directions. That's why when something negative happens, if you simply know that there could be an equal amount of positive in it, you will start to experience more and more of what you want. You will ease through the process much easier. And that's because as you give it positive meaning, you therefore get a positive effect. And we don't always see in the moment of what that positivity could be, but it could lead you to something else. And when you have that perspective, it changes everything. So, when it comes to the higher self, that is something that we do. Is we at a higher level are orchestrating certain events out in our life. Certain appointments we've made. And the key is we don't have to stress about, are we going to make certain appointments? That soulmate that I feel like I'm supposed to meet, I haven't met them yet. What's going on here? Let that go. Understand that we will make all the appointments we want because there are many opportunities. Me and my buddy Victor Otto, we were just in Sedona for a couple days meeting up with some YouTubers out there. And there's two YouTubers. It's a couple. It's a wife and husband. It was interesting. They were talking about synchronicity, and they were talking about how we were eating at this place in Sedona called Chocolate Tree. It was good food, and we were eating there. And we were talking about how they met because they've known each other, or they've been together for like 10, 15 years. They've been married for a while. And one of them in their business is like the marketer guy, and the girl is like, she's like the face of the business. And they run like a business that has to do with like higher consciousness and stuff like that. Very successful at what they do. And it was interesting because they were talking about that, of how they first met. And what they said is there was one year that they found out that they were actually in the same spot at the same time, but they just didn't know who they were. So what they realized that a couple years after they met, they were like, oh, where did you were at this place for New Year's? I was at that same place at the same time. But what happened was they were both drinking. So it could have been that because they were both drinking, it didn't actually synchronistically meet up, even though they eventually met up because that could have been something part of a soul contract. So you see, in the same way, their higher selves could have been baiting them towards each other. They're around each other a couple times, but then eventually it hooks in somehow. Something happens, and then it hooked in, and that's what happened. So you see, we never know in the moment, but the idea is to trust the process and to understand that our higher selves are always baiting us in certain directions, and if we simply take the bait in a positive way, it doesn't have to be like we're little puppets and our higher selves like, hee, do this, do this. It's just we're more aware of going in certain directions, and it's an empowering feeling. We are guided. It's about how much more aware of that guidance can we be. That is the key. So let's go on number 2, not number 3. I just wanted to rhyme. So number 2, the second secret of your higher self that will totally transform your life is knowing every single night when you go to bed, you are waking up into higher states of consciousness. You think when you go to bed at night, oh, I'm having little dreams, yay. Having these dreams, and I wake up in the morning, I can't remember my dreams, yay. Or I remember some of them, yay. Whatever it is, understand when you go to bed at night, you are waking up in higher states of consciousness. The thing is in higher states of consciousness, in unconditional love and bliss, and in this higher state, higher dimensions, you could say, we may not understand or be able to interpret anything that's happening. You see, we interpret this reality through our 5 senses. What if there are realities beyond the 5 senses? Like, try to explain sight to someone that can't see. What reference experience? Someone that was born blind. How would you explain it? It'd be very hard to do. Well, there's these pictures with images and color. Like, what the hell is images and color? What are you talking about? You mean it's like waves, like sound waves? You're like, oh no, it's a little bit different than that. I mean, there's almost no way to explain it. But sometimes we become entrenched into this reality. We think this is all there is. There's just sight, hear, touch, smell, all this stuff. But then you also got clairvoyant people, the sixth sense. Remember that movie? That movie scared the crap out of me when I was younger. But nonetheless, here's the thing. There could be senses beyond that which we have, but our brain cannot interpret it when we're asleep at night. Also, when you're asleep at night, imagine you remembered when you woke up every morning that you are unconditional love and bliss, and then you have to come back to earth. You wake up here and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not unconditional love and bliss here. You are, but you're just not aware that you are. So we live life in the ego. We may not be as relevant for us to be here if we remembered who we were in these higher dimensions. So if you become completely at peace with that of this reality, then there's chances you can remember more and more of the higher dimensions. I'm starting to do that because I'm very at peace with being here. Back in the day, I thought, I loved Harry Potter and all those other movies because I'm like, magic. I think that in higher dimensions, that could be our natural state. However, here, we have these physics and we have this certain stage that's been set up, the certain reality, and it doesn't seem to be as prominent as Harry Potter land. However, in higher states of consciousness, we start remembering more the more at peace we become with current life, current earth that we're experiencing. So, just try that for yourself too. When you go to bed at night, try to remember some of what you experience, what you really experience, because this is the thing. You will always get a reflection of what you believe to be true, and part of that may be if you don't believe that it's even possible that you are more than just your physical ego structure, then you won't experience more than that. But the more aware you become, the more you stretch outside of the bubble, and the more you realize that you are naturally more than you priorly thought. So when you go to bed at night, if you know that you are more, or you just have this curiosity about it, you could be experiencing more. However, that can't happen if you're like, no, this is all that I am. I am only the Aaron Doughty that interprets reality through the five senses. That is all that I am. Reaction mode, stimulus, response, stimulus, response, stimulus, response. That's all there is. But then you shift into awareness and you realize, stimulus. I can observe that stimulus. There's a new perspective that goes beyond that of the ego. What is this awareness? And then it feels so good. And then you start to feel more spaciousness. You let go of lower vibrational states of consciousness. And then you start to become more than you priorly were. And that's what the expansion of consciousness is all about. That's what's happening on the planet right now. More and more people are becoming aware of this perspective. Now, the third secret of the higher self is that you have these guides, spirit guides. You're always guided. However, there are times you will have these spirit guides, and these could actually be different souls that are giving you different information. However, one of the secrets is sometimes we have certain beliefs, and some of our beliefs are these guides have to look a certain way. If you grow up maybe with more of a Christian or a Catholic background, maybe you think of your guides more as angels. Maybe if you grew up in a different way, you think of your guides as more of people from the past. Maybe Native American, you think of more as your ancestors. Now, a lot of times our higher self, because we go beyond that of just our ego, our higher self may give us certain symbols that we are comfortable with, but in actuality, sometimes our guides, not all the time, but sometimes our guides may actually be our higher self looking and appearing to be of what we think of as just a different soul, a different guide. But in actuality, it is another version of us, or it's our higher self. Now, it depends on how deep down this rabbit hole you go. Because the further down this rabbit hole you go, the more you realize that everyone that you experience in your life, at a deeper level, we are all connected, and everything is a reflection of the one source of consciousness. So you could say that no matter what, every single guide you have is another version of you, just like every person on this planet is another version of us at the deepest fundamental core level. The cells in your body. You got blood cells swimming around in your arm right now. You got blood cells on this side swimming around your arm. They may be separate blood cells, but they're all part of the same body. In the same way, we are all cells of Gaia, of this earth. And we're walking around as cells, and we're like, I'm separate from everyone else, but there's this cosmic grid around the planet that we're all a part of. That's why many people have invention ideas. They'll come up with the same invention idea on different parts of the globe at the same exact time. Well, maybe that's now in the collective consciousness, and different people are pulling it through. So, it's about understanding just who we are. So that's something else that our higher self may do. So remember, you are so much more than just the ego structure. You are becoming more aware of who you are, and the more you begin to tap into this energy, the more your life will begin to transform. The more you will realize who you really are. You are so much more than just your ego. Yes, your ego can interpret reality through the 5 senses. You can become aware of the ego, you can observe your thoughts, but understand that you are so much more. That there is certain situations, life events, appointments that you've made before you were born, and you are constantly guided. Just trust the process. If you don't get it the first time, you will continue to get the motivation to go in a certain direction. If you're not getting a certain message, maybe the pressure heats up a little bit, maybe they turn up the pot, and then you boil a little bit faster, and then it gets you to, then you transcend that of water and you move into steam. Doesn't mean you die, but it means that you transcend form in a way. This is a metaphor. But in general, understand that you can become more connected to your higher self. You really can't become more connected to your higher self because you're always connected, but you can become more aware of the connection you already have. And as you do that, your life will explode in synchronicity. You'll see that everything in your life is a form of synchronicity. You realize that who you are at a greater level is so much more than you can imagine. This ego structure is just an avatar that you're currently using. Loosen up. Have fun in your life. Understand when you go to bed at night, you are awake at higher states of consciousness. That you are going through and figuring out the next day and kind of planning out certain appointments that you've made. But you're becoming more and more aware of what that is. So this is who you really are. You are you and your higher self and everything that you see. It's just a different aspect of the larger part of consciousness, which is who you naturally are. That is what awareness is. That's what you're becoming more aware of in life. So, also, I'm going to be doing more live Q&As on Instagram. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram yet, you can see it right there. I do daily posts there twice a day, plus live Q&As. If you want to ask me questions, I'll give some answers. I have something that's coming called the Shift Experience with Aaron Doughty. The Shift Experience. This is going to be something I do live events with, plus a course that will help you have an experience of transformation, not just theoretical ideas, but help you to go from doing to having into being. Understand you can transcend social conditioning. You can transcend the parts of you that are trying to become more. You can create from a higher vibrational state of consciousness. And that's becoming live here in the next couple months. If you want to be updated as to when that goes live, you can click on the top of the description box below. Also, I'll be sending daily emails as well with coaching stuff, like stuff that'll help you along the process. If you want more than just videos, you want the written word, there you go. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the little notification gear next to the subscribe button in case you want to see the daily vids that I do, because that's the way YouTube does things now. You have to hit that button to see the daily vids. And other than that, as always, peace, much love, namaste.